race of the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gears season embarks upon Altamaha, North Carolina's Ace Speedway for the Folsom Fit Supply 275. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on FloRacing and out here at the racetrack. I'm Blake McCandless, joined along by my good friend Eric Brennan, and we'll have James Pike covering all the stories down trackside. And Eric, you can see many of the shots right there, 4:30 p.m. starting right on the dot. But there has been a couple of clouds that way towards 1 and 2. Thankfully, they have largely stayed away from the racetrack the last couple of hours. A shower came through after practice earlier, washed away a little bit of this racetrack. The track crew did a tremendous job. They were able to get some other practice sessions in after the Cars Tour had finished up there, so it looks like we're set to at least try to get qualifying in this afternoon.
And perhaps the best news is, and the best move is, that when in conjunction with Cars Tour officials and track management here at the Ace Speedway, the decision was made to adjust the race schedule tentatively for now, moving up the start time to our green flag for tonight's running of the Folsom Fit Supply 275 up to 6 p.m. Eastern time. So here's what we got on the docket. 4:40, about 10 minutes from now, we'll kick off qualifying for both divisions. We'll give you a quick highlight as to how things went down at Orange County, leading up to our pre-race ceremonies at 5:50 p.m. And then, as we mentioned, the originally scheduled start time for this race moved up an hour, 6 p.m., and the order has been shuffled, with the late model stocks going out first and the pros to follow. So a proactive move to hopefully beat out some of that inclement weather that is still sitting a little bit to the southwest of the Speedway.
And again, you can see, at least as things stand right here, it's been a beautiful couple of days out here, weather-wise, mid-70s throughout the last couple of days. We do have some scattered clouds around the area. And another thing, it has been quite windy, a little bit more damp than it was yesterday in terms of the mile per hour and the winds, but still a little windy out here in Altamaha, North Carolina this afternoon. But Eric, looking forward, 5th race of the season, and of course, I know we talk about it every single week. These drivers setting their starting positions, so important, especially at a track where track position is of the utmost importance at the famous 4/10 mile.
Yeah, this racetrack may measure in length at a similar capacity to some other venues that we visit on the Cars Tour calendar throughout 2025, but the layout is very unique, especially when you compare it to some of the other racetracks that we visit. This track was born back in the 1950s. It was initially a third-mile dirt oval. It was reconfigured in 1984 to expand the size of the dirt facility, but in 1990, they paved it over with a NASCAR sanction, and then they reconfigured the track to the 4/10 of a mile configuration that we will race on today in 1999. And in 2025, the NASCAR sanction returned to the facility in what was an added incentive to Ace Speedway's track plans for this season, with weekly racing competition having already kicked off in 2025. But Blake, one of the things all drivers talk about when you come to Ace is brakes.
Absolutely. That is one thing, whether, regardless of the class that runs here on a weekly basis, or even when the Cars Tour comes and visits them, both the late model stocks and the pro late models, it is not necessarily tire wear that is going to be the discussion tonight. It is all about brakes. For more, let's head down trackside and meet James Pike.
Good afternoon, Eric. Good afternoon, Blake. Yes, you've addressed the elephant in the room. We are worrying about threatening skies, but from a strategy perspective, that's going to make this race very interesting because the drivers are going to be dealing with a sort of moving target. We don't necessarily know what to expect in terms of the program, and so that's going to make it challenging because you could push and try and get track position early, but if you push too hard too soon, you might not necessarily have anything if we go all the way to 125 laps. So it's a similar issue to what these drivers dealt with back in August when we were here. If you remember, we raced with the threat of rain and we ended up running everything in. So we don't really know what to expect on that front. And I think part of balancing that challenge, or really all of balancing that challenge, is going to be one of the best things we can watch over the course of this evening, because these drivers are all going to be shooting probably for something different. They're not necessarily going to be aiming for the same exact thing. And that might make this race one of the most entertaining on the schedule so far.
If you can remember that race that James was referencing last August, we saw one of the best battles for the lead that we have ever seen in the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear. And much like that race last August, the threat of weather was on the horizon, although they got all 125 laps in. Then we hope to do the same tonight. Qualifying next up with the Pro Late Models and the Late Model Stocks. You're watching FloRacing's coverage of the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear.
Every crack, every tire mark, every layer of paint. At every short track in America, they tell a story. But this one's a little different. Hickory Motor Speedway, the birthplace of NASCAR stars, and that's not just a slogan, because from Earnhardt to Jarrett's, Setzer's, and Houston's, generations of racing royalty have carved their way around this historic oval. In the modern stock car racing scene, now new names are trying to build foundations right there. On the ZMAX Cars Tour, veterans and rising stars aim to capture checkered flags and build legacies. But for some, they're just getting started. And there's no better place to do it than at this throwback track for the throwback race. It's a track that teaches you that not everything needs to be polished and perfect. If you conquer the cracks and the imperfections, you can achieve greatness. And while it's important to celebrate racing heritage, we also look to the future of pavement racing. We want the present and the future to mean as much as the legendary past. And it starts now. Let's hold the biggest night in pavement late model racing history. The Throwback Classic at Hickory Motor Speedway.
Back with you here at Ace Speedway, just moments away from Pro Late Model and Late Model Stock Car qualifying for the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear. You can see many of the fans, which again, hats off to this racetrack, Eric, because it wasn't just the schedule that got moved up. The grandstand's now opening a little bit earlier for the fans that wanted to come out here to the famous 4/10 mile this evening. Everybody doing their part to try and get this show in. Again, a rescheduled 6 p.m. green flag start time. So we're going to get rolling with qualifying here pretty quickly, try to get that green flag in, but it's going to start with the pros before the late model stock cars roll off around one of the tougher racetracks, honestly, Eric, that we go to in terms of driver, team, car, all having to be in sync to get around this place correctly.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty unique to go back and look at some of the past history at this racetrack for the Pro Late Models, as this venue has been on the calendar twice a year since the Pro Late Models series was developed with the Tour back in 2022. Some of the former pole winners you'll find: William Sawalich, Mason Diaz, who's in the late model stock field. Caden Quapple has done it twice. He, too, is running a late model stock car here tonight. And Caden Honeycutt, who was running in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series event at Texas last night, albeit not the result they were looking for. Honeycutt is actually the track record holder for the pros with the Cars Tour at this racetrack, set here last August. The time to beat for one driver to make history tonight, 15:202, just under 95 miles per hour average. We are going to kick off Mahle Pistons Pole Award qualifying with a unique story representing the Rackley War Racing, number 25.
Oh!
And a unique start to his qualifying effort with a little bit of fuel dumping out of the overflow on the side of that car. Jason Kitzmiller is going to loop around on what was to be his warm-up lap. Now, this car is normally piloted by Jason's son, Isaac Kitzmiller, who has committed to running the full ARCA Menard Series East campaign, which has him at the Nashville Fairgrounds, also patiently waiting out the weather. So Isaac may be watching along. He comes into this race, Isaac does, with the championship points lead. He's watching his father try to turn some laps here.
And again, that's no worry about the moisture that's on the racetrack. They ran a couple of divisions after the Cars Tour went out a little bit earlier, so that wasn't a case where there's enough moisture on the track. That's just a case of somebody trying to heat up their tires a little bit as they get off of pit road.
So the Rackley War entry for Kitzmiller is going to be the driver to set the bar for this Model A Pole Award qualifying session. And Jason has been running the full ARCA Menards national season, fresh off a second top 5 effort in 2025. After coming home in the top 5 at Talladega last weekend on the ARCA Menards Series side. First lap for Jason Kitzmiller, a 15.559 for the driver who's made several late model stock starts with the Cars Tour, but this will be his first in a pro. 15.384, the lap of record for Jason Kitzmiller.
The next driver out on the racetrack again. It was worth noting that Brandon Lopez in the number 6 Bryson Lopez Racing entry was slated to go off earlier. You saw in some of our shots of our pre-race coverage that car was getting some additional attention at the tech tent before rolling out on the racetrack. So we'll try to see if that car will roll out. All 10 that make to the racetrack will start. But quite an effort to try and follow up for this driver. The number 51 for Rick Ware Racing. We'll see what Jamestown, North Carolina's Carson Ware can try to do after Luke Baldwin and his dominant performance at Orange County Speedway just 7 days ago. Ware now piloting the Rick Ware Racing Coastal Ford, and first lap through is going to be about just over 2/10 off of the lap laid down by Kitzmiller, as the second lap through is almost good enough for the Molly Pistons Pole Award out of the first 2 cars, just 8/1000ths of a second shy, even through 2 cars, Eric. It is close in the Cars Tour.
Driver who's trying to make the most of the opportunity comes into this night second in points. As we mentioned, Isaac Kitzmiller, the points leader, not here tonight in Nashville. So this could be a big night for the driver in his second full-time season with the Cars Tour in a pro late model. Initially from Yorba Linda, California, now calls Mooresville, North Carolina home for this family-owned entity. In the GESI DPX Fit G-Sport by GESI and AR Bodies, number 97, Dylan Garner on the racetrack. 3 starts so far in 2025. 3 top 10 finishes. Looking to better that result here tonight, maybe to get up into the top 5 or maybe get his first career win. First lap puts him 3rd of 3. 15.483 for Dylan Garner, who started 15th and finished 12th in his only other prior Cars Tour Pro Late Model race at Ace. Garner comes to the line to see the checkered flag, and he will be 3rd of the 3 cars. Picks it up just a little bit. Very tight field. 11,000ths of a second across the 3 cars that have been out so far.
Another thing that's worth noting here today that's a little bit different, again, it's kind of varied depending on the track that we've gone to, but typically here in the Cars Tour on a 0.4 of a mile track this year, the quote dead lap that a lot of these cars would get out of pit road is not going to be a factor today in the pro late models or in the late model stock cars. So I think that's why you saw Kitzmiller go out early. He's trying to heat up those tires before starting his initial lap, as we welcome the Scepter Racing and Development number 6 of Ben Mayer out of Chester, Maryland. And his first lap goes right to the top of the charts, 15.312 for Mayer, who's been very confident in his race car all weekend long. And you can see exactly why as he built some insurance here. Nearly 2/10 of a second worth, 15.186 as Mayer blows the competition out of the water for the first 4 cars that we've sent out today.
Mayer won the FloRacing Fieldmaster Award last time out in Orange County, trying to not have to worry about that if he gets started on the Molly Pistons pole. Next car on the racetrack, late addition to the field, second race with the Walker Motorsports team. This is the Team Critical Groton Bowling Center, number 54 for the Walker Motorsports team, with the driver out of Waterford, Connecticut, Brody Monahan, 6th in points with 2 top 10s in his 3 starts. Now trying to see what he could do at this racetrack with this team. Brody being a New England native, he said pretty much all of these racetracks in this part of the country, very different than what he's been accustomed to driving on, but it's not slowing him down. He will, in fact, come very close to running a similar lap time that Kitzmiller ran on his first go-around. Monahan quickly to second, but still needs a little less than 2/10 to jump up to P1. He'll find more speed on that second lap, but only about half of what he needed. Monahan still second, about 75 thousandths off of Ben Mayer.
An interesting story here, making a ZMAX Karts Tour Pro Late Model debut, is this driver, Adam Madrid, the Spaniard, taking to the famous 4/10 mile tonight for the Pro Late Models. In the number 8F, it is Adrian Ferrer, who again will come to the line and start his lap. The 2024 GR Cup champion, looking to get some laps here at the famous 4/10 mile. Has fared pretty well in some of the early practice sessions that we saw a number of days ago. Let's see what his first lap is through, and 15.562 will be Ferrer's first lap of record here at a Speedway tonight. You can see these drivers trying to get right down to that white and yellow paint in turns 3 and 4 to try to give that car a little bit of grip through the corner, and Ferrer's able to do that to improve about 1/10 of a second up to a 15.452, sixth fastest.
Next up, a driver who's had an up and down few starts for the season, but tonight looking for what could be maybe his second career Mahle Pole Award in only his third Cars Tour Pro Late Model start. Missed his opening attempt at New River due to illness. Started on the pole in his Pro Late Model debut at Cordele with a top 5, and then last time out at Orange County had a rebound from a crash while battling for second. A great learning opportunity for the driver of the Treetop and Panini Rackley Ward number 62, Keelan Harvick from Charlotte, North Carolina. His first lap slots him into third. About 1/10.5 off of the lap laid down by Ben Mayer. Harvick looking for a little bit more, fresh off of what was a very developmental opportunity to have to overcome some adversity at Orange County. Hoping to not have that much misfortune tonight, and he clips himself up onto the front row. About 48 thousandths shy of Ben Mayer, but Keelan Harvick goes to second.
So just a couple of cars left to go here in Pro Late Model qualifying. As you can see, taking an approach where he is trying to set up entirely for that second lap around this racetrack. In the number 15 Veterans America Toyota for Walker Motorsports out of Long Island, New York, it is Rodney Dallas who will take to the racetrack this time by. And again, Dallas, a very strong run at Orange County Speedway a couple of days ago. Got to listen into this team for quite a while during practice yesterday, and to hear the communication between spotter and driver and trying to learn a facility that for many drivers can be very difficult to try and wrap their hands around. Dallas goes 8th fastest of the 8 cars we've sent out thus far. Lap 2 is going to be better, but Dallas will still stay in that 8th position, 15.472 for the 15 machine.
Next car on the racetrack could be the final car. We'll see if this team car of Brandon Lopez will be able to lay down a bit of a flyer in what is another opportunity with this race team. In fact, moved over to the Bryson Lopez team for this race. Driving the Atlanta Paving and Concrete, number 47 out of Land O'Lakes, Florida, TJ DeCare. And one of the team owners for this race team, Brandon Lopez, was slated to be the first car out. So we'll see if they've gotten the 6th car back in line to make an attempt. But DeCare right now is carrying the banner for the organization in what was a late move to the car and team that won the track record in qualifying with Caden Honeycutt last August. DeCare is going to slot into the 4th position on that go-around and hope for a little bit more. He has 3 prior Cars Tour Pro Late Model starts at this racetrack, all of which resulted in top 10 finishes. Second lap will be a little bit faster, but DeCare will remain 4th for now as we welcome the team car and team owner, partial owner for the Bryson Lopez team as the final car to take time.
Well, I was just about to say, saw that they were able to push that car out for the tail end of qualifying, so they will be able to make a time as Brandon Lopez, the Woodstock, Georgia native, and the Bryson Lopez Racing number 6 is going to make his times here at the famous 4/10 mile as the final car out in single car qualifying. Lopez, as it stands at the moment, sitting 5th in the 2025 championship standings for the Pro Late Models here in the Cars Tour this season. We'll see with whatever was ailing that race car is going to slow him down a little bit, but he is able to clock in 10th fastest at a 15.496. Again, we have seen a pickup on lap number 2 for pretty much every driver out here today. He needs nearly 0.3 of a second to try and unseat Mayer at the top of the charts, and a valiant effort is going to lock in Lopez into the top 5 with the 5th fastest time at a 15.311. But at the end of it all, it is going to be Ben Mayer with the fastest time. Only driver to get down into the 15.1 second bracket. And it looks like he'll win the Motley Pistons Pole Award here at Ace Speedway.
And they are wasting no time to fire off the late model stocks. Again, with impending weather potentially in the area, we're going to kick things off with our points leader. In the Bass Pro Shops at Roto-Rooter and Sundrop Chevrolet for Junior Motorsports from Hampton, Virginia. Already a 2-time winner on the season. Won the pole in the race at New River. Had a great run at Wake County, finishing second. Outside pole and win at Cordele. Connor Hall trying to rebound from an 18th place effort that took place last time out in Orange County. His points lead was cut from 21 markers to 9. Looking to maybe get 2 more if he can win a Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole, and he'll set the bar at a 15.390 with 1 more lap to go in his run. Paul trying to see if the late model stocks will match what the pros did and see if lap 2 will be better. In his case, no. 15.395, the mark to beat for the field as Connor Hall sets the tone.
And with what we saw earlier today, again, Landon Lewis paced practice earlier today at about a 15.40, so we could very well see a repeat of New River All-American Speedway. First car that goes out maybe could be the fastest one, as we welcome one of the fastest cars that we saw in Rougemount just 7 days ago. It's the 00 Medicorp Toyota of Chase Burrow. Comes out onto the racetrack out of King Williams, Virginia. Burrow's first offering is going to be a 15.528, 15.528, a driver that is taken well to many of these racetracks. You're having to get up on the wheel and drive. You can see him wrapping right along the apron in turns 3 and 4 as Burrow brings it across to the line and will find nearly a 1/10 of a second. So 400 shy of what Connor Hall ran earlier, 15.431.
Third car on the track is the Mid-Carolina Landscaping family-owned 2W out of Randleman, North Carolina, Ryan Wilson, who's had an up-and-down year to say the least. Missed the show at Orange County, was the second DNQ in 3 attempts this season. The race they did make, ran all the laps at Cordele, finished in the top 20 and 18th, but Ryan was very public in saying that he had to figure out what was fundamentally wrong with this race car. He spent a couple days testing at Caraway Speedway and made a last-minute decision to make the tow out to Altamaha to compete in this race. And after the testing efforts, we'll see what it reflects on the stopwatch. So far, he's third of the 3 cars, 25 total late model stocks on the property. Thus, everyone is going to make the show tonight. But for Wilson, this could be a big developmental night for this small family-owned team. And that second lap was within 0.05 of a second of the points leader. I'd say they made some strides on that car, even though he still sits third.
They certainly did, and again, very brave to go down there again. We saw him on the apron in 3 and 4. That's definitely usable. We saw Heck, the driver that used to pilot this race car, do it a ton and use it to great success here in Altamaha, North Carolina, as we welcome the number 4 RNS race cars, WG Speaks Ford of Cade Brown, out on the racetrack right now. And Cade Brown having a tremendous season, sitting second in the points. And Eric, when you think about building momentum, you want to do it at this incredibly compact part of the schedule. How about compact on the speed charts? Cade Brown, second fastest. He goes 1/1000th better than Burrow, 9/1000ths better than Wilson. He needs 400ths to try to best Hall, and he's going to end up 200ths short. What a great effort for Cade Brown. Consistency has been the key for this team. I think they're set up to have a very good night tonight in Altamaha.
Even though this driver had some bad luck at Orange County, still in the top 10 in championship points in his rookie foray in cars of this nature. In the Autos by Nelson, an L&R transmission, Nelson Motorsports number 22, the driver from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, rookie Carson Lofton. He has a smart modified start here and a tour type modified in August of 2023. Finish in the top 5 there. Now trying his hand in a late model stock car. One of the late model stock cars that certainly has a great reputation across the Cars Tour. And young Carson is certainly trying to dial himself into racing these cars on a much more frequent basis. The first lap, not what they were hoping for. We'll check lap number 2. Lofton, second lap going to be much quicker, and we still, out of the 5 cars that have been on the racetrack so far, all 5 covered by less than 1/10 of a second.
That is just what we've come to expect out of the ZMAX Cars Tour, and why, again, these drivers, every single moment, every little move that they make in qualifying, so crucial, because, again, once you get in these races, it's so difficult to make up positions. And how about this driver, new look, coming out to Ace Speedway this weekend, had been a part of the Mike Darn Racing camp for the first couple of race weekends in 2025, has now made the move over to Hettinger Racing, and now pilots that number 71 Chevrolet. And his first offering here with that race team is so far going to go 6th fastest of the 6 cars that we've sent out in the Southern Vantage Southern Ready Mix Chevrolet out of Wilson, North Carolina. Second lap through for Parker Eatman. This car was kind of the comparison that team used, that they tried to build around, and Eatman, again, still within 1/10, exactly at 1/10 of a second, top 6. Connor Hall down to Parker Eatman, who goes 6th fastest.
Let's see what Jake Bowman can slide himself into. I'm sure he'll wedge himself somewhere in that field, or maybe even jump up to the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole. He was close to doing that at the season opener at New River, where he qualified 2nd. This is the factory canopies, LPG Transport and Pacific Coast Propane Chevrolet for the Huntington Beach, California native, who ran both pro late model races here last year for Wilson Motorsports and started 4th in both. His first lap is going to come across, check the stopwatch here, 2nd fastest. What a first lap for Bowman. He needs 14 thousandths of a second to jump up to what would be a potential Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole. Second lap for Bowman, not going to happen, but he may be looking at his 2nd front row start in 2025 should things stand.
And I think I can guarantee that just about every team that has Race Monitor pulled up on their phone in the pit area is taking a very close look at what this driver is going to run in his qualifying effort. They've been looking at this car all weekend long, trying to compare themselves to Leisure Time Rental Chevrolet, who has won a pole here 3 times and took a race victory back in 2020. It's Ryan Millington out of Statesville, North Carolina, at one of his best racetracks. Let's see what his first offering is, and the first one is going to be a good lap. 5th fastest for Ryan Millington at a 15.432. Again, just a couple of thousandths of a second. Complete that trio right in the middle of the field of the cars we've sent out. Does Millington have something to challenge for another pole? He comes up just shy of the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole. 15.397, goes just slower than the lap laid down by our first qualifier in Connor Hall.
I love qualifying with the late model stocks. My goodness.
It's great from our vantage point. Down there, I'm sure it's not so much.
And we're only a third of the way through the field. How many more are we going to pack within that tight margin? Connor Jones is going to try to throw his name into the mix. This is the Jones Utilities Construction and Family Tire and Auto number 44 from Mike Darn Racing for the driver out of Fredericksburg, Virginia. This is his 6th Cars Tour late model stock start at Ace, and the first lap has him 9th of the 9 cars that have been on the racetrack so far. Hoping to be one of the few who's able to make up ground on his 2nd time by. His best effort at this racetrack came in October of 2022, where he started 5th and finished 6th. He'll pick up a few spots and wedge himself in that 1/10 of a second margin across the top 9 now to slot into 7th.
Looking back at 2024, this driver really performed well at Ace Speedway, was able to make up nearly 10 spots over the course of that race, which we know here is very difficult to do. A couple of different racetracks where Grady seems to come out and perform well, and this seems to be one of them. In the number 1 ABC Hosiery and Apparel Chevrolet, let's see what Grady can do for the native out of Youngsville, North Carolina. First lap through for Andrew Grady, and it's going to be 10th fastest first time for the number 1 of Andrew Grady, 15.687. Again, we've seen a lot of cars pick up quite significantly here on their 2nd lap, but you can see they're struggling to try to get all the way down to the very bottom of turns 3 and 4. And you can see it reflect there on the stopwatch, 15.545. Andrew Grady's going to have his work cut out for him to try for 125 laps later tonight.
The Pinnacle Racing Group and off-axis number 28S for Connolly Springs, North Carolina native Landon S. Huffman is on the racetrack, fresh off of just missing out on a top 10 effort at Orange County. After rebounding from some early misfortune in the race, he's being swept up in a wreck that unfolded in front of him. If you want to question Landon S. Huffman's dedication to the art of being a race car driver, tonight is East Burke High School senior prom in Connolly Springs. Landon has elected to skip that to be here at Ace Speedway tonight as he clocks in the top 10 on his first go-around.
Good decision.
On top of that, his graduation is going to be held on May 31st. We'll be at Langley. He's already made the decision with the family. We're going to miss out on graduation too. We'll see you at the racetrack. Landon S. Huffman jumps up a couple of more spots this time through to jump up into 8th position for the young driver who's continuing to get better and better as the weeks roll on.
I wish I could have used driving a race car as an excuse for me to miss graduation.
You and me both.
Parents would not have been happy, though. We'll welcome the next driver out onto the racetrack for lead podium performance, currently sitting 8th in the championship standings in the Air Doug Toyota. It is Doug Barnes Jr. out of Forest Hill, Maryland, who will take to the racetrack. The lead podium performance going back and forth. They were very fast in some of their mock qualifying runs yesterday. In fact, they paced the second hour of practice yesterday. But the first offering here for Doug Barnes Jr. is going to sit him in the 12th position for now, 15.634. Able to get through 3 and 4 well that time. Let's see if it translates on the stopwatch. Checkered flag in hand, and Barnes is able to pick up again right in the hornet's nest there. 8th fastest for Barnes, 15.459, the new lap of record.
For the second consecutive Cars Tour race, the driver who came into the night second in points was involved in an incident and left the Speedway in 6th. Last time out at Orange County, it was the driver you see on your screen, the winner at Wake County Speedway in race number 2, coming off the disappointment that resulted in a trip on the wrecker after a hard crash for none of his own doing. Now trying to see if he can bounce back at the Convenience Tire and Auto, BDL Motorsports, and Victoria Swimwear, family-owned number 81, Minnie Tyrell, whose first lap is 12th of the 13 cars that have been on the racetrack. This is his 10th Cars Tour start in a late model stock car at this racetrack. His best effort was 4th back in 2021. Trying to see if he could better that here this time around. As he comes to the line, Tyrell not going to be able to crack the top 10. He is going to slot in 12th with a 15.505 for Minnie Tyrell, hoping for some good fortune come the green flag tonight.
Got to have a conversation with this driver as we were kind of leaving the property at Orange County Speedway 1 week ago when he was picking up his merchandise trailer that he hauls out to all of these different racetracks that we go to in the ZMAX Cars Tour. And Landon very emphatically, after having an effort in which he drove through the field towards the front for a top 5 effort at Orange County, he said, they're going to have to deal with this year. Let's see if he holds true to that in the number 57 IBCI Chevrolet for the Carroll Speed Shop as Landon Huffman's first lap through. Kind of a reflection of what we saw at Orange County Speedway, I think, a week ago, Eric. A lot of cars early went pretty quickly. The rest of these cars kind of slotting in 15.6s or so, 15.5s. As we can see the final effort for Landon Huffman, he'll tie the effort of Carson Lofton for 10th fastest, 15.480. And again, Eric, this is why qualifying is so difficult on this tour. 2 300s, that's the difference in 5 spots right now if you're Landon Huffman.
And here's a former winner on the tour who could certainly threaten for a pole. He won a pole here in the Pro Late Model race a couple of years ago, now making his second start of 2025 in the Prince William Arena and the Sign Shop Hedgecock Racing House Car. Manassas, Virginia driver Mason Diaz. Spoke to Diaz briefly as he clocks in 10th fastest his first go-around last night. And it was equal sentiment. Really happy to have Mason back on the tour. Not only is he a great race car driver, but a great personality throughout the pit area. Spent a lot of time helping the family out at Southern National Motorsports Park. And he's spending time going to the top of the charts. 15.385 for Mason Diaz to the pole.
What a lap from Diaz. Again, was watching practice yesterday, and this car, they seem to be pretty happy with it. And you could see exactly why right there. Mason Diaz, the part-time, again, we had a part-timer win at Orange County last week in Jared Fryer. Could we be set up for some of the same here tonight at Ace Speedway? Mason Diaz of 15.385 welcomes the now newly sponsored Savaro Chevrolet to the number 4 out of Hedger Racing. It is Donovan Strauss, Marietta, Georgia native is going to clock in 16th fastest for Donovan Strauss. Again, a new sponsor that he's very proud to have along with him, with so much of the effort that goes in with everything that they're doing here in the month of May. Donovan Strauss will clock in 14th fastest in that 4S car, I should say, 15.500. And in fact, I mean, you talk about teammates, Strauss 100th off of his Hettinger Racing.
Second time you get to see this driver in a late model stock car. Second time with the Kevin Powell Speed Motorsports team. The Byron Outdoor Superstore. Brinkley RV and KevinSaysYes.com number 12 for Fort Valley, Georgia native Hudson Bolger. Get his second start with the tour after making his late model stock car debut at Cordele. And he actually ran one of the local events here a couple weeks ago, came home 7th in preparation for this race. Last week, different type of vehicle, different type of track. He was in a legend car at Wake County on the bull ring. Now back in the late model stock car for Kevin Powell and his organization. His first lap was 17th, lap number 2. He's going to jump up to the top 10 for Hudson Bolger. 10 spots so far out of the 17 cars that have been on the racetrack so far.
Speaking of cars on the racetrack, again, I've been here over the last couple of days, and this is probably one of the cars out here these last few days that has not turned near as many laps as the rest of their competitors, as we'll see what Buddy Isles Jr. has in the Timber Waters Chevrolet in his number 11 as he comes to the start-finish line to start his opening lap and what is now his second season in the Z-Max Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear. Currently sitting 9th in the championship point standings. He has a number of spots up for grabs directly in front of him available as Isles Jr.'s first lap, 15.666. And what was one of his best performing racetracks in 2024. Isles down to the line, and it is going to be a big pickup, 12th fastest for Buddy Isles Jr. as he slices through nearly half of the field that had gone out. 12th fastest for Buddy Isles Jr. now at a 15.478.
Next on the racetrack, a driver looking to just get some positive momentum, and tonight might be the night. Second consecutive race that her premier sponsor, Folsom Fence Supply, has also supported the race in which they are contesting in. Tonight, the Folsom Fence Supply 275. This is the second Lee Pulliam Performance Toyota, the driver out of Jackson, Georgia. Cars Tour rookie in 2025, Laney Bice. First time around for Laney Bice on the first go-around. 16th fastest for Laney. Looking to try to right the ship after some misfortunes and kept her results in the 20s. Did run some local events here at the end of 2024, picking up a 4th and 6th place finish, respectively. What a second lap for Bice. Up to the front row and 0.02 of a second shy of P1.
Just look at that top 4, 12 1,000ths of a second separating them. And this was the fastest car that went out in practice earlier today. In fact, he paced both of the practice sessions earlier today in the Rent Source MMI and 704 Hemp Chevrolet for Kevin Harvick Incorporated out of Supply, North Carolina. Landon Lewis, who, despite the fact he went out and ran the fastest mock run in qualifying earlier today, also ran a longer race run than anybody else in both of the practice sessions. And his first lap is 7th fastest, 15.429 for Landon Lewis, again piloting the race car that last went to victory lane at this racetrack with Brent Cruz last August. Lewis looks quick on lap 2. Is it going to be enough for the pole? He'll come up just shy, but he'll crack up into the top 5, 15.402. 17 1,000ths of a second off is a top 5 starting spot. That's just unbelievable.
Got about a handful of cars to go, and here is the longest tenured veteran of the series in the field tonight. Out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina, in the Carroll Speed Shop number 2 for Crossroads Harley-Davidson, IBCI and Josh Sellers, Brandon Pierce making his 11th Cars Tour late model stock start at Ace. His best result here was 8th in 2021. His best start here was 4th back in May of 2023. First time around for Brandon Pierce, 21st of the 21 cars that have been on the racetrack so far, but we've seen drivers about 0.2 off of the pole on their first lap have a pretty significant pickup on lap 2. Pierce is hoping for just that. He's going to get a bit of a pickup here, but not quite up into the top 15. 17th for Brandon Pierce on his second time by.
Just a couple of cars left to challenge for the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole, including the Richmond, Virginia native and the CR Phillips Electrical, Glass Guys, and McKay Capital Partners Chevrolet. For Alpha Sports in the 05, it is Mason Bailey taken to the racetrack. Again, just one of 4 competitors left to go out and try to unseat Mason Diaz at the top of the charts at a 15.385. Bailey's first effort through. Is it going to crack the top 20? It looks like it's going to be just a little bit off for the driver that is looking to make his second start in 2025 and his first in the ZMAX Cars Tour at Ace Speedway. 22nd fastest for Mason Bailey's first lap. He'll stay in 22nd, but does find nearly a tenth and a half on the second effort through, 15.599. Now Mason Bailey's qualifying effort tonight.
We mentioned the nugget earlier when Minnie Tyrell was on track that last week was the second time a driver fell from runner-up in the points down to 6th. Well, what a comeback at Orange County for the driver of the Best of Retire and Auto, Affordable Heating and Air, and Buddy Scoop 04 for his family-owned operation out of Lexington, North Carolina. Ronnie Bassett Jr. started 9th, finished 5th at Orange County, now moved into a tie for 3rd place in championship points, 18 markers behind Connor Hall. First lap for the 06 car. It's going to slot into 8th quickest. That's a great first lap for Ronnie Bassett Jr. His best finish here was 6th twice back in August of 23, May of 24. He hangs out the back end of the race car, but the stopwatch is not going to be on his side, but still a potential top 10 effort for Ronnie Bassett Jr. with just 2 cars to go.
And again, that second lap through for Bassett, you could see him kind of push loose, kind of chasing that car up the racetrack, runs a 5.12. Again, the margins are so small as we welcome yet another driver. In fact, went second fastest earlier today in practice, could very well challenge for the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson Pole Award out of Concord, North Carolina, piloting his Chevrolet for Matt Piercy Racing that Ryan Newman drove at Orange County Speedway in Rougemont 1 week ago. Austin Green's first lap is going to be 23rd fastest at a 15.570. Again, this driver was down into the 4.1s or 4.2s earlier today. He puts all 4 Hoosier F45 Star tires onto the apron to try to find some speed on lap number 2. And it is going to be a solid pickup. Again, a 3-way tie for 16th between Austin Green, Carson Lofton, and Landon Huffman. They're making Lee Watson's job tough over here to separate those drivers.
And Blake, as the final car enters the racetrack for the late model stocks, you made a great point earlier. This driver was hoping and praying that we get this session in, because if they had to fall back on owner's points, he may have had to have come from the back of the field, making another start in 2025. Started 29th and raced up to 6th at New River All-American Speedway. The Carolina Carports Junior Motorsports number 8 car for Caden Quapple, 7th, his first time around. This is a racetrack that he has 3 wins here in the pro late models. His brother Carson, a 3-time winner here in the late model stock car, driving this very numbered car for this team. The final car to the line, Caden Quapple, not going to happen. And Mason Diaz, in his second start of 2025, wins the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole at Ace.
Second start of the year, second career pole for Mason Diaz in the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear. We mentioned it was a part-time driver in Jared Fryer that was dominant at Orange County Speedway and went to victory lane. Mason, his only prior pole coming at Dominion Raceway, is able to get it done here in Altamaha, a track in which he started 6 times. It's only been 1 top 5 that he's had. He had a second place finish here not too many years ago. It's been a good racetrack for him. Luck hasn't been on his side, but he has luck, he has speed, and I think he's got to be feeling great tonight, starting out front as, again, like you were mentioning earlier, Caden Quapple, I'm sure Mason Diaz also very fortunate that they could get qualifying in tonight so he could start from the best position and not from the tail end of the field.
Well, we're running a bit of hurry-up offense here because of the inclement weather, so we didn't have a chance to catch up with Ben Mayer yet after he won the Male Pole Award on the pro side. Pike is standing by with Ben Mayer.
Ben Mayer does pick up the Male Pistons Pole Award at Ace Speedway for Setzer Racing and Development. And Ben, for you, just to hit this mark and to achieve this, what does it do for your confidence going into tonight's feature and how you sort of see yourself compared to the rest of this field?
Well, in practice, we weren't very good. We were struggling all weekend trying to get it to turn in the center of the corner. But I think we made some good changes, and I fixed how I was driving a little bit, and we picked up a lot. So our race pace was good the whole weekend, though. So I think that in the race will be pretty good.
What's it been like working with Setzer Racing Development? People like Brandon Setzer, Lauren Renier, they've got a ton of experience over there. How has that benefited you?
They have, just like you said, they have a lot of experience. So I'm happy to be around them. They teach me a lot of stuff. Brandon and his dad and all the crew are super nice to me. So I really like working with them.
Ben, primarily a road racer by nature, tons of karting experience, going left and right, but the fastest driver in the PLMs. And we'll turn our attention here to our right because Mason Diaz has just finished up his photos for the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson Pole Award in the late models. So, Mason, how big is this, not only for you, but for everybody at Hedgecock and the team behind you?
These guys, they work really hard. I can't race as much anymore throughout the years, just getting busy with life, but happy to hop back in the seat with them whenever I can. I mean, they bring hot rods every week. We sometimes just have some bad luck, but it's fast for today. Hopefully this rain can hold off and we can go out there and race tonight. But I'm excited for this team. And I struggle with qualifying. Everyone knows it, but hopefully this is the start of the new qualifying efforts.
And think what he can do with all that track position that he'll have going into tonight. Mason Diaz, Thunder Road Harley-Davidson Pole Award winner in the late models at Ace.
Thanks, Mike. Talking to Ben Mayer's mother earlier, Beth, and they said they had a lot of family coming out here today, so already off to a good start. And Mason Diaz alluding to the fact that qualifying was a bit of a struggle for him the last time he was full-time on the tour. The win at Hickory came after a great qualifying effort. If Mason's starting up front, he's got a chance to win. Tonight will be no exception. We're going to jump back to some highlights from Orange County as we step aside, and our fingers are crossed that the inclement weather will miss this speedway. Scheduled opening ceremonies about a little more than a half hour from now. We'll be back for the Pulse and Fed Supply 275 on Flow right after this.